the video game company HAL developed and published Adventures of Lolo 1, 2, and 3 for the NES, a series based on the Japanese Eggerland series that started in 1985 on the MSX with Eggerland Mystery, followed by Eggerland 2. Actually, the first Lolo game consists entirely of puzzles from previous Eggerland games. So what's up with the Adventures of Lolo series? The Adventures of Lolo is a top-down puzzle and action game. You play as Lolo, this blue ball, who sets off to rescue Princess Lala, a pink ball. She was kidnapped by the evil Great Devil, sometimes referred to as King Edgar, and that's not Edgar. There are 50 puzzle rooms spread across 10 floors of 5, with each floor gradually increasing the challenge. The goal of each room is the same: collect the hearts to open the chest, get the treasure from the chest, exit. Retrieving the hearts can sometimes enable tools you need to complete the room. For example, you might pick up ammo, which you could then shoot at an enemy to turn them into an egg, which you can then push around and use to solve the puzzle. Doesn't really make sense, but it works. Or you can shoot them a second time to dispatch them from the screen, but they do come back. Some of the enemies can be tricky to deal with and require different strategies to avoid. Some shoot at you, some try to trap you, some zoom around quickly on the screen and can kill Lolo on contact. You may also unlock the ability to smash a rock or cross a bridge or even change a directional arrow so you can pass on through. The design is clever. It doesn't take long before you start scratching your head though. The difficulty of the levels range from very simple in the beginning to what I would consider to be just about right at the end. You'll sometimes need to think outside the box to solve the puzzles, but nothing really seems unfair or too out there. For example, to advance through this room, it's imperative that you push the blocks halfway between the two shooting enemies, so that both are blocked by one block. You might think that's obvious because I just showed you, but trust me, it's not your go-to move when you get to that point in the game. It took me a bit to figure it out. Lolo is given 5 lives to start and loses a life by either being shot, drowning, or if the player needs to restart a level, they can just press select. Fortunately, there is no timer on any of the levels, so that's really nice. If you lose all 5 Lolos, no sweat, there's infinite continues. The game can take a while to complete depending on how good you are at solving the puzzles, but thankfully there's a password feature, so you can come back exactly to where you stopped. There's nothing to the game outside of solving puzzles, and once the final puzzle is complete, the showdown with the Great Devil is merely a cutscene of Lolo casting him into an egg and out into oblivion.
Yeah, even with 50 puzzles, I never really felt like the game got old. I mean, I'm not saying there needs to be like a sequel or...
Exactly 11 months later, Lolo would return in the sequel, Adventures of Lolo 2. Lala would once again get snatched by the Great Devil, this time referred to explicitly as the King of Eggerland in the manual, and Lolo has to once again solve 50 puzzles to rescue his maiden. The experience is largely the same with few wrinkles. Same enemies, same premise, but at least the puzzles feel fresh. They start off simple like before and gradually become more difficult. The difficulty here, though, surpasses the original game by quite a bit, as some of the later stages can be pretty tough. The levels are laid out the same, with one difference being instead of a single castle in Lolo, Lolo 2 has you scaling a tower before ascending to a castle in the clouds where you'll fight an actual boss battle. This is one of the chiefly unique things about Lolo 2. There's an actual boss battle, where you have to shoot King Eggerland and dodge his fire. He's extremely easy, so it's not a big deal that you've not had any practice shooting things in the game prior to this point. I guess it is kind of nice that instead of a cutscene, you get to partake in the vanquishing of Lala's kidnapper yourself. The graphics and animations of the enemies are slightly better, and the music is basically the same. Loving the original as much as I did, picking up the sequel and getting largely the same experience didn't bother me, but if you're looking for something new and different, you're out of luck here. With King Eggerland defeated a second time, and with 100 puzzles already contrived from the same formula with the same enemies, it would seem as though the Adventures of Lolo recipe was completely tapped out. Just when you thought there could only be possibly, at most, 100 different puzzles you could make from the handful of elements incorporated into the previous Lolo games, Adventures of Lolo 3 comes along and boasts 100 more fresh puzzles, 9 boss battles, and 17 levels. You know what's worse than being kidnapped for a third straight time? Having all your friends turned into stone. Because that's what happens. See, Lala didn't get kidnapped this time. Actually, she's a playable character in the game, but while her and Lolo were away, all their friends got turned into stone by the King of Eggerland's son, who's a jerk. So that's the story. Get your friends back to normal. I guess it's better than a third kidnapping. The game has an overworld that allows certain levels to be played out of order, but it's fairly restricted. You can't jump right to the end or anything. There are no longer lives either. If you die, you simply restart the level you're on. Because of that, pressing select doesn't actually kill Lolo anymore. It's more of a give up button that allows you to reset the current puzzle. The only new element is a crumbling bridge that allows you to walk over it just twice, but that's it. There's also a new enemy that sucks you toward them, but doesn't actually kill you. Everything else is pretty much the same. There are some training rooms as well that allow players a brief tutorial, but these are optional. And the password system returns, but the passwords are longer for some reason and use symbols. The environs change over time too in the later levels, which is a welcome wrinkle. The visuals and animations everywhere else are really no different than before, but it's nice to see some new colors here and there, especially since you'll be staring at these screens for a bunch of hours if you plan to reach the end. There are now 9 boss battles, with each battle consisting of a large enemy on screen that Lolo or Lala must shoot over and over until they turn into an egg. Some are more difficult than others, but in general pale in comparison to the difficulty of the puzzles. Yes, the puzzle difficulty in Lolo 3 is intense. The latter levels are brutal. I found myself just staring at the layout of a puzzle for like 5 minutes before even moving my character. So after 17 grueling levels, 100 mind-bending puzzles, well, like 60 of them are mind-bending, you finally get to face the new King of Eggerland, the heir. He looks a lot like his father. Once he's defeated, the land returns to normal. Yes! If you love puzzle games like this and aren't tired of the first 2 games by now, Lolo 3 should more than satisfy. You can't go wrong with any of the Adventure of Lolo games on the NES. The first game is the simplest, but still fun. The second one is more of the same with a bit more difficulty, and the third one blows them both clean out of the water with twice as many puzzles and a little more flair to go along with it. But it's tough. If after 200 Lolo puzzles you need more, well, you'll have to look overseas. There's a Game Boy version that only released in Japan and Europe in 1994, and 2 Windows games that only came out in Japan. The last, in 2001, was the last Eggerland release. Alright guys, thanks for watching.